Hey, what's up guys? Today, I'll show you a comedy drama film, Limbo. Spoiler ahead, watch out and take care. The movie begins with a man named Jimmy waking up in a small dark room. The moment he opens his eyes, he gets a brief flashback of a gun being shot. He looks around, and the room he is in is very similar to a police interrogation room. Seconds later, a man wearing a suit walks into the room. Without saying anything, he opens his briefcase and pulls out his files on Jimmy. He sits down and asks Jimmy if he remembers anything. Jimmy shakes his head. He introduces himself as Balthazar and explains that it's perfectly normal not to remember anything. He then adds that Jimmy was transported from the hospital to the station. Jimmy realizes that he must be in a police station. He demands his right to a phone call after being arrested, but Balthazar says that he is not under arrest. Jimmy stands up and takes this as a signal that he could just walk away, since he is not under arrest after all. But when he opens the door, immense heat and the sounds of screams greet him. Apparently, there is no exit for him. He sits back down, and Balthazar asks him to remember what he did. A flashback reveals that Jimmy went inside a pawn shop that day. A nice old lady catered to him, but he pulled out his gun and demanded that she give him the cash from the shop. Her son came in, and he ordered him to get the cash instead. However, the sounds of incoming police sirens make Jimmy panic. While he was distracted, the son pulled out his own gun and tried to shoot Jimmy. In response, Jimmy shot back and ended up killing the old lady with a gunshot wound to the head. Balthazar tells him that the old lady had 3 children, and with one blow, he had destroyed a family. Jimmy argues that he was only defending himself and that the son had shot first. Unswayed, Balthazar reads the list of crimes that Jimmy had committed previously. He was a habitual criminal who lived a life of crime. He declares that there is no doubt that Jimmy is guilty, and all he has to do is sign the confession. Jimmy is about to sign the paper when a woman wearing white enters the room and tells Jimmy to stop. She introduces herself as Cassiel, the assigned defender of Jimmy. Balthazar is confused about her inclusion, since the case is open and shut and Jimmy has already confessed. Cassiel is angry that Balthazar did not inform Jimmy about his rights. She is adamant that she can exculpate him and earn him a full pardon. Balthazar chuckles at this, because no one has gotten a full pardon yet. Balthazar momentarily steps out of the room to verify Cassiel's story. He goes to a colleague of his and asks about the department that sent Cassiel. A scared look comes over the colleague's face, and he tells Balthazar to be careful, because he had a run-in with another defender like her a few years ago. Back in the interrogation room, Cassiel slowly explains to Jimmy that he is already dead. He was shot in the back by the police when he arrived at the pawn shop. He died at the hospital. Balthazar comes back and declares that he will request for a stenographer to be present during the interrogation. He also sits down and reveals the other half of the truth. Jimmy is now in the afterlife, and Balthazar is a devil, while Cassiel is an angel. Cassiel is advocating for Jimmy to be exculpated and be granted entry into heaven. Meanwhile, Balthazar is on hell's side and will be working toward getting Jimmy damned. The stenographer arrives, and he and Balthazar exchange pleasantries. He sits down in the corner and pulls out his typewriter. Balthazar begins the prosecution's argument. He calls forth his first witness, the old lady that Jimmy killed. She appears in the interrogation room with a bullet wound on her forehead. She is furious with him for robbing her of any chance to see her children grow up. Jimmy looks guilty and he doesn't say anything. The old lady disappears, and it's now Cassiel's turn. She begins her argument by saying that it is already certain that Jimmy had killed the old woman, but there are extenuating circumstances that could justify him getting a full pardon. However, they are interrupted when the Crown Prince of Hell walks in. He is pissed at Balthazar for taking too long to secure a conviction. He reminds him that he is just an angel that was cast down from heaven and forsaken by God for eternity. Both Balthazar and Cassiel take a break so they can contact their respective bosses. Meanwhile, Jimmy has a conversation with the stenographer. The stenographer has been here since the dawn of time, and he shares with Jimmy the horrible punishments awaiting him in hell. In turn, the stenographer is also curious about Jimmy's life on Earth. Jimmy scoffs and answers that the city where he is from is a garbage dump. But the stenographer has a more romanticized description of life on Earth, and he yearns for the kind of happiness that humans have. At that time, both Balthazar and Cassiel can't contact their bosses, and they find it strange. They return to the interrogation room. Cassiel picks up the phone and calls forth her witness. A man in a leather jacket is escorted inside. He turns out to be Jimmy's absentee father who died some time ago and is now being punished in hell. The father is arrogant and told them during his testimony that he tried to raise his son right, but he knew he would turn out to be a no-good nobody. Jimmy angrily speaks up that is not the truth. His father beat up his mother every night, and eventually he beat up Jimmy too. The father gets escorted out of the room soon after that. Cassiel argues that Jimmy is a product of a cycle of violence, and his upbringing has led him to his life of crime. But Balthazar is unconvinced that it is enough to exculpate Jimmy. Cassiel calls forth her next witness. A flashback reveals that Jimmy had met a prostitute who was living next door to him. She was a young girl, and every night Jimmy would hear her and her customers in the next room. One night, the girl visits Jimmy in his apartment. She shares that she wants to be a poet, and Jimmy chuckles at how impractical his dream is. Later on, her pimp comes knocking at his door. The girl begs Jimmy not to tell him she is there, but Jimmy still opens the door and lets the pimp inside. The pimp threatens the girl for not servicing her customers for that day. He also threatens Jimmy for spending time with the prostitute without paying. Jimmy does nothing to protect the girl. Cassiel is astounded that Jimmy didn't do anything for the girl. Balthazar rants about how fruitless it is that God spends so much time paying attention to humans when it is the angels who have been there for him and killed in his name. It turns out this is Cassiel's first case, and she previously worked on records and archives. God assigned her to be a defender and told her that Jimmy is worthy of being saved. However, Cassiel is starting to believe that this was all just a prank. The Crown Prince appears again and talks to Balthazar. He demands that Balthazar close the case soon. Balthazar returns to the room and calls the next witness, Jimmy's mother. She has stringy hair and gray skin. There are noticeable track marks on her arms. She is a drug addict who is still jonesing even in the afterlife. The mother vaguely recognizes Jimmy, and he introduces himself as her son. As a kid, she would neglect Jimmy and just disappear into a haze of drugs. When their money ran out, Jimmy resorted to stealing so she could buy her precious pills. The mother suddenly claims that Jimmy killed her by smothering her with a pillow. Jimmy explains that he killed her because she was a drug addict who couldn't hold on to life. In his mind, it was mercy. After this, Cassiel gives up and quits. She thinks that there is no redemption for Jimmy. She had put her trust in God, and now after seeing what humans are capable of, she doesn't want to lose whatever faith she has left. Cassiel stands up to leave, but Balthazar persuades her to finish the case. The Crown Prince arrives again and talks to Balthazar. He offers to give him a promotion in exchange for him securing a conviction on Jimmy's case. Cassiel appears, and the Crown Prince insults her and her smelly part. Cassiel does not back down and insults the Crown Prince and his smelly part too. Balthazar steps in and tells the Crown Prince that he will do as he asks. Another flashback reveals that the prostitute and Jimmy had started hanging out together. She told him that she wants to escape her life. The day that Jimmy robbed the pawn shop and was shot in the back, the prostitute found him half dead in his apartment. She wanted to call an ambulance for him, but Jimmy knew that it was already too late. So he mustered whatever remaining strength he had and used his gun to shoot the prostitute's pimp. It's implied that he did this so he could free the prostitute from her abuser, giving her the freedom to start a new life just like what she wanted. This persuades Balthazar to grant Jimmy a pardon. However, the devil himself arrives in the interrogation room. He asserts that one good deed is not enough to undo a lifetime of wickedness. But Balthazar stands by his decision to pardon Jimmy. The devil subtly threatens him with torture if he doesn't obey him. Still, Balthazar chooses heaven for Jimmy. Surprisingly, the devil lets him make this decision. The devil releases Balthazar from all his obligations in hell. He will now ascend to heaven. It turns out the person that Cassiel was supposed to save was not Jimmy, but Balthazar all along. God believed that Balthazar is worthy of redemption after thousands of years of being in hell. By choosing to pardon Jimmy, Balthazar shows that he has goodness in him. However, Jimmy is still sentenced to hell. The devil takes him outside the interrogation room. Balthazar is in shock after what happened. Cassiel may have lost her case, but she is happy that Balthazar will become an angel again because of her. But Cassiel is resolved that she will return to working at the archives. Before leaving, she tells Balthazar that he can take her spot as a defender and that she'll see him in heaven soon. The movie ends with Balthazar standing up with a smile on his face. Before leaving the interrogation room, he takes the gold pen that he was using to make Jimmy sign the confession at the beginning of the film. This Daniel CC Movie Channel. Stay safe and enjoy your day.